Hello and welcome to today's Woodworking Wisdom. So today I'm really going to look at a wood lathe accessory. It's the best way I can describe it, and it sounds bad, doesn't it? We all enjoy getting into our wood turning. Fantastic hobby. I know you can watch the shavings just fly away and everything else. But you also produce another commodity which you really need to think about. That's the wood dust. I know when I first started turning, I never had an extractor. But we never had a dust mask. As a 12-year-old, it just didn't matter. I wish I know now what I know back then. Really put it into perspective of maybe what I used, how I looked at things, get rid of some of that dust. Think about what you're doing. So as much as your labour is one thing, you need to think about some form of extraction or protecting yourself a little bit from the harmful nature of what you're doing. You're never going to get everything, okay? Unless you stand in a wind tunnel, you're never going to get a thing with your lathe because the shavings are kind of come off in different directions. They're going all over the place. But what we do want to get rid of is that finer dust particle. So we're going to go through certain things and look at that. First stage I'd look at. This one saves you getting in trouble when maybe you go in the house, but even keeps the dust off you a little bit more. Something like a smock. So that's a good idea. You can unzip it, take it off, leave it in the workshop. You're not taking all the shavings into the house. The wife won't complain as much, or the husband. All right, let's put that in perspective before I get told off. So that's quite an important part, but also it protects you from that dusty environment that you can leave it, you can wash it. You're not getting your good clothes dirty, but that's one little thing. Other things, what are you actually going to turn? That's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at something like a dust mask, and then we'll go through the extractors. So on the bench over here, let's go to there for a minute. Let's have a look. So on the bench here, I've got a couple of things. We've got some materials, and then I've got my mask. Let's just move a few things about. I know when you first start off, money is a commodity. You bought your lathe, your chuck, your tools. You've got to think about all those things. So you buy a dust mask, the most basic type of dust mask. Sadly, not going to work. You want to think about what you're doing with your dust mask. Some of you guys will have that big bushy beard. This is useless for you, okay? First of all, it's going to steam your glasses up. It's not going to seal on your face properly if you have a beard. The guys of you that go, I'm clean shaven, it doesn't matter. You still need to get it to seal totally on your face, or the air pulls in the side. If it's pulling in the side, what's happening? It's pulling the dust particle in as well. So that's something quite important to think about, type of dust mask. So we've got different ones here. Something fold flip. Something on here you open out. We have a foam nozzle bit that goes on your nose, the bit that goes under your chin. You also need to make sure when you put it on, you fit it to your face. So you pinch the foam bit over your nose. That will seal, stop your glasses steaming up. That's important. That's quite a good bit. The other bit on here goes in under my chin. And yes, you need to fit them right. If you don't fit them right, again, they're not going to work. This has a valve, so that allows you to breathe in and out through the valve, and that's actually helping with the filtering. It will also stop you steaming your glasses up. So little things like that can make a real difference. So you have disposable dust masks. Now that's a magic word again, disposable. They are a one-day, one-use type thing. Then you throw it away. If you're not using it all day, yes, you can get to that scenario of maybe I want to take it off and you only use it when I'm sanding. Seal it in a bag. Seal it up. That'll keep it cleaner. Don't just throw it on the workbench in amongst all the shavings and fill it up with shavings. So that's your first little option really, something as a dust mask. Okay, let's just move those. Now next thing I'm going to look at, what are we using as materials? Oh well, this is as big as area as anything else. And again, I wish I had more info now, like back then when I was younger. So here, what we got? We've got some wood. You're going to turn wood. Got a banshee in it. Buffing wheel. You've seen us use those. Some plastics and some epoxy. They're all going to have a different type of particle. So different materials. So this is a timber called a Roco. All right, this is what I started to turn on when I was about 12 or 13. I turned a bit this other week. That's all I got for us. Turning it to a cylinder, it went in the wood bin. So this is quite a dusty commodity, quite a peppery smell, not a good one to turn in reality. The sanding particle or the dust that even comes off this when you're turning it has a a fibre, if you looked at it, with lots of little barbs on the edge. They collect in your throat. You can feel them. It's not a great material to turn. So make sure if you're going to turn this, got good dust extraction or visors and things like that in your dust mask, which is what we're looking at. This weird thing, and one of the guys, Matt, who does our videos, me down, what's that? It's not an elephant foot, I promise you, okay? This is a thing called grass tree root. This is an Australian thing. It's a lily. Grows west coast of Australia. I've seen these grow. Best to turn when they're wet. This I've had about 20 years. It's not wet anymore. It's going to be really dusty and horrible to turn due to the dust is not good. So I need to make sure I'm really protected when I do this one. All right, so different materials. Benzia nuts. These have this lovely, fluffy velvet type material around here. Now, if you can see the darker red on this, it's almost like a velvet, but a really weird type of fibre. Well, you cut through that. So if you're not wearing a dust mask or anything else, where are those fluffy fibres going? And they float in the air. So you're breathing it in. Not good for you. Plastics. Well, again, another weird thing. If you're sanding this down to a fine particle, those dust particles are going in the air. If you've got nothing on, you're going to breathe it in. No one really knows what that's going to do to you. Epoxy's become really popular. And again, another type of plastic. You sand it. So the best thing you can do with these is maybe sand them with water. Carl Winstead uses, I think, an oil when he sands the epoxy. So you've got to think about your finish you're going to use with those at that point. So you can use something as a lubricant when you do your sanding. So maybe an oil. I've used water with the pen blanks and the plastics. I might even sand with wax. That will help keep the dust down. All right, and note that as a magic word, keep the dust down. Last weird one. Cotton mop. Final stage polishing. When you start with these, they drop off a lot of cotton fibres when you first start. I can look like Fluffy Monster when I walk in the house wearing this, and I get told off by my wife. So it is worth thinking about. This is going to drop those cotton particles off. They will float around the workshop. You're going to breathe them in and out. So think about what you're doing with simple things like that. So real basic materials there, but you need to think about what the wood dust is, what type of wood it is it air dried, kiln dried, all those things play a part. Green wood, fantastic to turn, keeps the dust down, but you've got to season it after, let it dry, and then remount it on the lathe. So lots of little bits to think about. So briefing in materials, but it's getting you thinking about what are those dust particles, what they like, sizes, beech. So English beech is a weird one, isn't it? It's actually one of the worst ones for nasal cancer. And it's due to the barb shape on the edge of the fibres. It sticks into your throat and your nose. It is not a good type of material. So do a little bit of research on your woods. I can give you a whole range of different woods. Cocobolo, waddy wood. All right? That's a real timber. Again, dusty types of stuff. So let's move the materials and then we'll have you back. Okay, so we've said about types of material. So woods that are more dusty, plastics, everything else. Now, I deliberately separated dust masks from something else. So now we're just going to look at powered respirator hood. What difference does this make? First of all, disposable dust masks, one use. Are they going to be cost effective long term? So you use it, at the end of the day, you're throwing it away. So it depends on how much turning you're doing. All right, they're not going to last very long. Something like a powered respirator hood has visor protection. So if anything hits the visor, it will protect you. You've got filtered airflow coming down through the filters. So they pull the air through, down through your face. It blows it out the bottom. So therefore that's keeping the dust away from that seal. I get lots of people saying, oh, this doesn't seal around the edge. It's actually blowing it away from how that air comes down. All right, so that's the important part. You need to make sure things like the filters are clean. All right, they will get more clogged the more you're using it. So keep those clean. They would, like I said, will protect your face. They will stop your glasses steaming up. Other major thing, if you have a beard, a powered respirator hood is a much better way than going than something as a basic, okay? That's going to give you a bit more protection, so better option than just a standard dust mask. So we've said about your dust masks, your hood maybe, you've got to think about your beard, if you wear glasses, all those little things play a major part. Now, what are you actually going to get rid of? On a wood lathe, I've already said, unless you're in a wind tunnel, you are never going to get everything. What we really want to get rid of are those finer particles, and some of those you can't even see. So that puts it into perspective. So what I've done is deliberately got a number of different particles we can show you. I want to give you an idea of sizes. So on the bench, we're going to have a look. So we have a tray. Now, different machines and different things. Now, I know I've said this really is aimed at wood turning. So this is something from a bowl. All right, those big fluffy particles, aren't they lovely? Now, in perspective of my fingertip, you can see the size. Right? Okay, so we've got an idea of the size of those. Stringy type of shaving, not too bad. So let's just brush them up a bit. Next one. I deliberately put a piece of work for a planer thicknesser. This is what I kept out the drum. And it's interesting, even with going through this bag, and it's difficult to see more in the bag, but there isn't any what I would class as dust. This is a shaving. We have a spiral block planer, different particle size. So hopefully you can see the relevance of they are different sizes. All right, so far we have wood lathe, as in bowl, planer thicknesser. Let's just spin this round. We're now going to go bandsaw. Now, you're going to go, this looks quite fine. That's almost more like breadcrumbs from my point of view from where we're heading in a minute. There are obviously a lot smaller than what we've done planer thicknesser. Now, this is a heavier type of shaving. It's bigger, so it's going to need more momentum to take that out of the way. Slightly smaller and spiral block planer, yes, is better. Getting smaller again. Then, what about the stuff we sand? Now, you're going to say I've cheated. Now, I've taken this out of our extractor that we use with our Merkur sander. Now, our Merkur sander, we have a 180 grit as fine as we go with the sanding disc. This is like flour. Okay? So the particle size, and like I say, it's so difficult to get this over on a camera properly. Everything is getting smaller. Okay, so it's relevant to what you're doing for your extraction and whatever else. Even your dust mask, you need to look at what particle size you go down to, what they are. Okay, so much finer stuff, of course, bigger. All right, that all plays a part in where we're heading in a second. And you need to understand with your wood lathe, it is something very unique. In what way? On a planer thicknesser, I make that as a shaving. That's it. On my bandsaw, this is quite big. Once you get into a wood lathe, you're going something much bigger particle to something right down to flour. There's no other form of woodwork where you are combining that as one type of waste. Everything else has a set size, and we can look at that and use it. So your wood turning is very unique. The bigger stuff, I don't tend to worry about. I can brush that up. This is what worries me. All right, the really fine stuff. Okay, so let's have a quick look at different extractors. What we're going to look at now, give you an idea of what you need to buy as an extractor. I know you know when you're new to this, which one? 1, 2, 3, 5. What do I need? It is confusing. You need to look at maybe the particle size you've got, okay? What is it going to do? So we've already just said on here, bigger, smaller. And again, think about this, and this will help you if you're thinking about your workshop, how it is, what are you going to have, okay? Now, you could have a plumbed-in system. We're going to look at that as well a little bit. Got to think about your pipes and everything else that go with your extractor. But first thing, what type of machine? Which type of machine is going to do it? So with our extractors, we've said we've got lots of different types. Most basic thing, and it's amazing when I talk to guys when we go to the shop, whatever else, has cloth bag, that'll do with my lathe, won't it? Need to look at what it is. Now, the cloth bag is a cloth. That's important. If you think about how material is sewn, it is interlocking layers of threads. If they make the holes bigger in the threads in between, that allows material through. It allows airflow through. That's important on a bag type extractor. Whatever is being drawn through here has to be able to balance to go out the back. So the holes in that material have got to be there. Got to have something to allow that air to pass through. If it hasn't got any holes, it's not going to work. So no, you can't put a plastic bag on this. You're just going to blow it up like a big balloon. it won't work. So this will take you down to something about 30 microns. Now remember the micron numbers, that's important. So this is designed as a chip extractor. It will be fantastic for our bigger particle stuff, what we said, planar thicknesser. It will probably do your bandsaw. You can hang it on the wall. Other issue with this sort of thing is you have, let's put them on, this size of area to fill your waste into. Right, so back off. So it draws air in the front, out through. So this is high volume, low pressure. Okay, so that's important. Now to empty the bag, you've got to shake it out. Not too bad with a bigger particle. With the finer dust, it will go everywhere. The other problem with this, the cloth bag on here is designed to allow that airflow through. It will retain that big particle because these are quite chunky. What it won't retain is that really fine dust. That will blow through your bag. So if you have a cloth type extractor machine with a bag and you're getting lots of dust out of it when you switch it on, it's not doing you any good because the really fine dust is coming back through that cloth. And you need to think about that. That's not a design fault. This is designed for a particular type of purpose, planar thicknesser, that sort of thing where you want that particle size. The minute you get to something really small where you're sanding, different problem. All right, so it will work for certain things. So next type of extractor I'm going to look at, we've done cloth bag, we've said about sizes of material. I can give you a slightly finer bag, but that's about it. If I want to increase it again and make it a bit better, I can get you down to 1 micron. So we're down to this. So this is a cyclonic type extractor. We have a motor, we have a separator that takes the bigger particle and puts it in the bag. Okay, so let's have a closer look. Let me kneel down into here so we can get a bit more angle on this. So we have, as we said, right on the top up here, the motor. And the guys that have regularly been watching, this is what we use when we're doing our demo. Okay, so we've got our on-off switch. We have a cyclone separator. So the fan is inside this bit. Throws the particles, they go round the swirly bit. The bigger particles will drop into here. The finer dust and airflow is coming right over to this side. You have a pleated cartridge filter. Now by having it pleated, you increase the surface area allowing the dust or the air out. A cloth bag, you've got a limitation how small you can go. With the pleated, you can double it up and allowing more airflow. If you cut the airflow down, you decrease suction. That's important to understand. So the cartridge filter will take the finer dust and drops it into the other bag. So you've got a separator system. It will take you down in particle size from 30 to what we looked at before to 1 micron. That's quite a drop. And it will do for your finer dust. All right. So it's quite an important part. Now, I'm just going to run round right to here. So on here, we've got the cartridge filter. We have a paddle inside it. If we turn the handle, we drop off the finer dust particles. They will go down into the drum and down into the bag. That keeps it clean. That's maintenance of keeping the cartridge filter clean. No different than me saying with the powered hood, you need to clean it off. That little bit of maintenance can be good, and that's quite simple on this. Okay, now I want to do something as a little bit of a demo. So we've got the tray back on here. Where should we go with? I think we'll go with a little bit of this, okay? We've got these bags, we can use some of this up. All right. Now this is something that, when I first started here, I was the one that sat in a group and argued about what we're going to do now. So we're getting our collection out. The problem one, that's the fine one. That's like flour. All right, got to be careful putting that out. Now, we've got our particles out on the tray here, different sizes, and it's quite relevant. Now, next thing, if you're doing something as a plumbed-in system, the bigger the particle needs to be near the machine. The finer thing can actually be further away from your extractor because it's easier to carry a fine dust particle that length, okay? So, if you're doing something plumbed in. Now, what I want to show you on here, we're going to put the big cartridge extractor on that we just looked at. We have our pipe. What happened? Oh, gone. That'll get it. Okay. Back to the main camera then stuff. So that will eat it up. That'll, gone. Big stuff, small stuff. Now, most of us, when we do this at home, we go on live, you might want to use a few other things. You might want to reduce the hose size. So I've deliberately set up something for that. So we're going to drop the hose off. I've got to have a short piece of hose and we're going to go for that. Now, on a low volume, high pressure setup, and all we've done here, 4-inch piece of hose, coming down to actually a Hoover extraction pipe. This is the same length as the pipe but we've got curled round off the machine. So the length is the same. All I've done is reduce the hose size. Now logically, if I reduce the hose size, I'm pulling the same amount of air for a smaller hole. Should have more suction, shouldn't it? What happens here? Not quite as it will go. But nothing like that. So the major thing, if you have a machine with a 4-inch pipe and you have a bag type extractor, so you've got plastic bag underneath, you've got cartridge filter or cloth bag, you need to keep that hose size above 3-inch. 4 is better. Next thing, think about the hose length. If you make it shorter, that's going to work better. And that's any extractor. You need to keep it nearer the machine. Okay, so prime example I can give you for that was a guy years ago who had this sort of size extractor, a planer thicknesser next to it, and 25 metres of coil pipe. He has the extractor next to the planer, the coil pipe going up and down for the roof bearers. It wouldn't suck the shavings away. Even though it's right next to it, it's moving it up and down that amount. So keep the pipe as short as you can, all right? You can kind of see that works quite well as long as I've got that 4-inch pipe. The minute I take it smaller, I lose suction. If you have to go smaller, have a shorter length. Keep as much 4-inch or bigger diameter pipe as you can, all right? So far, we have looked at low volume, high pressure. Now we're going to turn around a little bit. So we'll get the camera back in, have a look. We're going to have a look at what we've got behind us down here. So we're now going to look at vacuum type extractor. Okay. Now, we're going to look at, obviously, size. If you think about where we are now, and it's small, okay, tend to be more compact. That can be a good thing, can be a bad thing. All right. So smaller size vacuum extractor. First thing, I can get you down to 1 micron again on this one. That's the same as what we've got there, a lot different than we did on the first cloth. That was 30, okay? Downside with this, quite small drum. And it's smaller than you think because you've got the motor inside it. So therefore, got to think about that space of what you're putting into it. If you use this with a planer thicknesser, and you get those big particles, 2 or 3 boards, you've got to go and empty it. Becomes frustrating. Whereas something with a bag, got a lot more space to put that waste in before having to empty it. A bag also makes it easier to empty. You take the bag off, put another one on. That can be good. So those little things make a difference. Vacuum type extractor has, in our case, smaller pipe, 63mm against our 4-inch, and we can go smaller. We get good suction. Right? It will take smaller and bigger particles. So we can even pick the tray up, right? So really good suction. And like I said, we get down to 1 micron. Now with this, and I'm going to get the spare one I've got because I want to get you to see things nice and clean. So on here, we've got spare motor and top. Borrowed it from the shop. Now this is the most important bit about these. We have our motor that sits on the top. That's the same as this. That's there. Oh, gently lean over. We have a cartridge filter, which is this. And then we have a plated cartridge inside. Let's just take those out. Now those two bits are actually quite important. In what way? If you want them to work effectively, they need to be kept clean. So let's just put this back together. Lean over, put on there. Now, why do I say that? You can see the one that's nice and clean. This is the one we've been using. Look at all the dust on here. Quite fine. So important that you give that a clean out occasionally. I don't think my shop one's now quite as clean. Look. Right. That gives you the scenario what it's collecting. Very fine dust again. It has a 2-stage filter. And like I said, we can get you down to 1 micron. So smaller size. Okay. We can also reduce the hose size. That's definitely a benefit if you want something that's smaller pipe outlet. Alright, so that's there. So, one type of vacuum extractor that has single motor. Let's bring this in. Now, most people say to me, this is large workshop vacuum Hoover. It is. This is made by Pneumatic. It says somewhere down on here, okay. Which is Henry Hoover in Chard. So they're quite local to us. Done these for quite a few years. This has got smaller hose on. I can put a 4-inch pipe. We can do smaller ones. Let's have a little bit of a look on there. So we've got our smaller pipe will go on here. We can have Hoover. I've got a 63mm plumbed in pipe accessory at home. Do you want me to do that again? No? Okay. So we've got our pipe. We can also take this off. Take that off. Take the front off. Put the nozzle on. Put a 4-inch pipe on here if I want. So if I wanted a 4-inch pipe, which we could do, we can use it, okay? That goes back on. We can obviously use this the same way as we've just used the other one. Let's get that nozzle back on. Inside here, and there are 2 models of this. This is twin motor, or you can have single motor. Let's just clear that to there. With using the smaller pipe, we've also got a bag filter. So that means all that fine dust is going into that bag, but I do need to give the bag a shake. That means it's not clogging the main motor filter to help and keep it clean. Actually works more effectively. We then have 2 other stages of filtration. Red filter, we have a white one. This will get you down to 0.5 micron size. So the particle size that will come back out is half the size of what you'll get out, the one we just looked at. So we're getting smaller on particle size. It will capture 99.995% of particles. That's a mouthful to remember, isn't it? Okay, so quite good to do. All right, so on off. A lot of suction on this. Okay, so that will hoover up, but I can also use it as a plumbed in system. Now, at home, I've got a little teaching workshop set up where I'm doing stuff there. This is what I have as Extractor. I have it with a 63mm pipe setup. Now, a few of you, Frederick, if you watch this, I've just got to find the pipe. Now, it's down here. I'm going to get tied up. Now, the other nice thing you can do with this, it has an outlet, which is on the top here. There's another vent. If you wanted to keep the noise down in the workshop, you can put your pipe somewhere else. That'll make it quieter. So it has an outlet to get rid of that exhaust valve. At this time of year, I actually have the exhaust valve coming back into my shed. So I heat my workshop. This gets to 62 degrees. But like I said, the air coming out the back of that, nice and clean. Easy to change the bag, easy to swap over, less dangerous of having to pour the drum and empty it. So these will seal up, take the bag out, put another one in. This takes you down to a HEPA filter. You can also add on another module on the top, which takes you even finer. So the particle size comes down yet again. All right, so it's quite important to start to understand that. The major advantage with the vacuum, you can reduce that hose size. That's something really to think about, okay? It will also retain that finer dust particle down to a better level. So that's thinking more about your sanding. All right. Last thing, just going to bring in. This is basically workshop type Hoover. This has an auto start facility, it's better for your power tools. So again, we've got smaller hose on this. Okay, quite a long hose. We can adjust the air volume, anything else. You can plug your machine that you're going to use, your router, your sander into this. You have your on off. This will also have a shaker. Let's have a Hoover up. So that will bounce the filter, which is what the noise is. Never clean. So this sort of thing is fantastic for your power tools. So if you're going to use your sander or something, that's a better way of going. The hose size is more dedicated for what you're trying to work with. If you start looking at your bigger machine we've got behind on a power tool, router table, you're going to struggle. So again, a vacuum type extractor. All right, so we kind of looked at extractors. Space. Oh wow, you guys out in the States that have visited, there's a few of you that have been to your workshop and going, oh wow, this is like a dream. Right, there's a space. Us guys over here, most of you will have possibly garage, garden shed, but smaller workshop. Space is a commodity, I know. So think about extractor sizes that we've just looked at. How much room have you got? Where are they going to go? Some of you might want plumbed in system. So what's that? That's pipe work within the workshop. You can have a blast gate that you open and close. So you've got to have your pipe work. So let's just have a quick look on the pipe work because there's weird little things, okay? You can have plastic, you can have metal ducting. Right? There is a mixture of the two, and depending on if you're trade, industrial or hobbyist, there are regulations you have to abide by. Right? So that's something to think about. Pipe work, well, I've just got plastic ones out of stock because it's easier to show you. Think about your airflow and how this goes in. A right angle, 90 degrees, will slow the airflow going through your pipe. So the less of those you have to have in your setup, the better. A Y is so much better than a right angle because actually, and you've got to make sure you go the right way, the air will pull down both of those. Not having to take that sharp corner. This is separating, yes, okay. So you might want to bring stuff across the ceiling instead of round the walls in a right angle. But it needs to be thought about. The Y, definitely better than a T because you've got a right angle here. The air doesn't pull round it as well. So again, things to look at how that's going in. You can get a 45 degree. That's better than a right angle. So maybe two 45s instead of a 90 will give you a better airflow. Pipe wise, smooth pipe with no ridges will help the particle move. Okay, that's the important part. If you have all right, flexible type pipe is great for connecting on the machines if you've got to. Again, keep it to a minimal length that you actually need. There's no point in having loads of this connected if it's just basically compressed together. This will slow the airflow a little bit. The only good thing with the coil pipe, it actually creates a swirl mechanism and tries to keep the shaving off the sides. But try and keep it as smooth runs as you can. So in other words, you don't want lots of bending in your U. That's going to slow the airflow considerably. Okay, so straight lines are better. Less joints, less right angles will help it go. Other little things, we can have things like reducers, but think about where they go. If you've got to put reducer in, have it as the last stage near the machine. So 4-inch pipe to the machine and then the reducer will help keep that airflow maximum whilst you can. All right. Rubber adapters can get over some of those problems. You can even make up wooden inserts if you like that you put the wooden insert in. You might have to turn something to adapt it to get to the size you want. Duct tape can be fantastic to go around the end of the pipes, push it on. It's amazing one size doesn't always seem to fit every machine. So it can get confusing, all right? But major thing with this, if you're going to do a plumbed in system, try and stay away from a right angle, especially on there. Straight lines are better, a Y is better, 245s are better than a right angle, and straight lines are good, all right? That'll help with the airflow. All right, so last few bits really kind of to look at, maybe a few accessories. The first thing I've got in from the back here, little cyclone type extractor. You can add things in. Inline separators is really the best way of describing this. So if I had this, and this is the setup I've kind of got at home, so with the teacher room there, I want something with a separator to use with my pneumatic. So vacuum, that's fantastic. This takes the bigger particles out, the finer dust goes into here. So my pipe from this will go in, up in here. So that carries my waste. The outlet goes onto my vacuum type extractor, and that gets over to the machine, takes the fine dust, but all the big particles drop into my drum. So really good for that, all right? And that acts as a cyclone, so it separates those particles out. Good way of going if you can, all right? And again, you could build that into your workshop system. Now, next little thing, I think we'll just go to there. So main one just briefly. Now, if you're going to have something with a plumbed in system, where are you going to put it? This is quite big to have in your workshop. They're quite noisy. So what do? I've got a little shed on the side of my workshop. So they live in there. It is insulated. It is watertight. There's a roof. I have access to it. I have a hole that comes back into the workshop to give me the warm air that you're sucking out, because you're drawing air out the workshop. So at this time of year, if I'm trying to heat the workshop, if I have the extractor running and I've got no vent coming back in, all the warm air that I'm generating gets sucked out up the pipe. So if I have a vent coming back in, the warm air comes back in. That's a great way of working. So if you could, maybe you can have somewhere you can store this on the side of your workshop. It could be a smaller one. That cuts the noise down, gives you more space inside, all those little things. You need access to get to it, to get to the bags and things. That's important, okay? And you obviously need to check them. No different than my pneumatic, I actually need to shake that bag once in a blue moon to drop the fine dust particles into the bag a bit more. Check the separator, make sure it's not full. Now, what about your lathe? What can we do that helps get rid of the dust particles? So let's get in a little bit nearer. So in here, no matter what we're sanding or working on, we need to get into this aspect of shape, whatever. Think about where the particle is going. So, things that can help. First of all, sharp tool. Cut it cleanly as you can. That will save sanding. That's important. If it's a dusty type material, yes, you want to get that pipe in nearer. We're going to look at that. Help support it. If you do things power sand, so soft pad sander and a drill, the swirl action with this creates a swirl action again with the dust. So it needs to pick it up. Lathe speed. Have the lathe running slower, it stops the particle going as far. Hasn't got the momentum, because it hasn't got the momentum in behind it of the lathe going round throwing that particle out. Where you sand in relation to what you're trying to take the dust away on, that's important. So all those little bits add up to try and get rid of your dust. So just come round here. Now most of you, when we've done the videos, we have this thing in front of the lathe. So a freestanding into there. I'm going to undo the bolt halfway down. I can bring this up. We have stay put in here, so we can bend it to everyone. We can turn it around. I can take it out. So stay put hose, I can also wind the end of it. Oh, I can make the hole bigger or smaller, so it'll fit. We can obviously connect that onto our pipe. That's easy. And I know there's been quite a bit of interest over the years with that stay put pipe. What's that? Other thing. I started to bolt this together earlier. So let me just get this out and make my life easier. You can have bits that you can add on. I'll explain what we've done here. On here we've got a metal bar that comes in. I've got it anchored off the black lathe stand in here. There's a lock handle. I've got another one here. We can move this forward and back. That's great. We have a hood set up. That'll go on there, and a washer. That goes in underneath. The hood setup bar has a flat on it and it needs to locate in the groove, which is why I'm holding it in there. I can move. Now with this, I can bring it round. I can move it, I get my weight, into there. We can move this up. So I've got a whole range of different places I can move this about to. Right? And I think what we'll try and do in a minute, we'll give you a bit of a camera angle, how near we can get this, maybe come in and get closer with the camera. But my nozzle comes off here. I've got my hood directly in line. A quick turn round makes it longer, more suitable for bowl work. So let's just give you that as a scenario. You can imagine where your lathe is. Got that there. I can have there. I can, if I undo the Bristol lock handle here, I can move it out, move it in. So in reality, what I'm trying to get over here, this is really adaptable no matter where I'm working. I can move it along the lathe bed, I can move it up and down, all that aspect is really important. So I can get the nozzle as near to what I'm sanding when I'm working on it. So most of the guys, when we tuned in, we'd watch the videos. Why don't you have this on the lathe? It's going to stop you guys seeing. We have our DES, we try and keep it down. Next thing, materials, we're going back to that first thing we said about. Think about what you're working, how dusty it is. Everything we try and work on, we try to use something that's maybe quite clean to work. Sycamore, ash, beech, something not too dusty. We put the extractor on when we sand, we bring the pipe in. I'd love to wear my hood, but it doesn't go with my mic very well. So all those little things come into it. At home in your workshop, you've got a smaller room than I've got here, okay? What does that mean? The dust in our wood turning room, that's bigger than the room I'm in now, has got space to go. In your little 6 by 8 garden shed, you're confining how much dust you're putting in there, and it's going to collect a lot more. So you need to think of getting rid of it at source. What you don't want is loads of fine dust sitting on the machine. Now, most of the machines we've looked at, the best we've gone down to is the pneumatic, 99.95, right? So half a micron in size, that'll get you down to. That's still dust in the atmosphere. That's the small stuff that you see sparkly in the air. So the best thing you can use for that is over here. Something as an air cleaner hung up the ceiling will make a lot of difference. This is getting rid of that really fine dust particle. Now, to give you an idea of, this is the one out of our prep room next door. It's hung up the ceiling. Make sure you hang the machine the right way. This is the smaller one. So you've got eyes on there. You can't turn it up on edge. It will affect how it works. This is the filter I took out of our one yesterday. It's not bad. It doesn't get used loads. This is the front face. The air is being pulled through. Look at the back. That different colour. Oh, wow. So this, I don't know if I want to do this, is all really fine dust. All right, shit, floating about now, okay? So that's quite an important part. You understand the fact that that air cleaner is catching those really fine particles. So, new filter, different colour. In behind it, there's another stage of filtration that the air pulls down through. This is trapping finer particles yet again. All right? So something as an air cleaner is a really good way of going. So priorities when you start, definitely a dust mask. Something to wear to keep you, it could be there, it could be disposable, it could be hood, something. Something as an extractor to get rid of the waste to start with. All right, you can use it to help you clean up. So my vacuum type extractor doubles up as a workshop Hoover as well. Fantastic, okay? Then something maybe as an air cleaner, hang it up the ceiling, that'll get rid of the finer dust particles. All those little things need to be thought out a little bit. Where they go, how they work, access to. But in reality, it's protecting you. I get people going, yeah, but it's expensive. You can't buy new lungs or eyes, sadly. All right, so your dust extraction bit needs thinking about. The materials you work with are going to affect what you can be able to do long term. All right, I enjoy my turning, so I've had to look at quite carefully what we use. All right, what I want to get rid of, that finer dust particle I see floating in the air, and everything particle size above it. The cleaner we can keep it, the safer we are. I hope you enjoyed today's woodworking wisdom. Something a bit different. not trying to scare you. I want to just get you to think about what you work with. All right? So we'll be back for more woodworking wisdom soon. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe, share this with your friends. Maybe they'll get some info out of it. Thanks very much. Bye then.